You know that feeling when you wake up from a dream that's already slipping away? For a few seconds, you can remember everything with surprising clarity. The faces, the conversations, the strange places that somehow felt familiar. Maybe you were talking to someone you haven't seen in years. Maybe you were running from something you couldn't quite identify. Maybe you were standing in a house you've never visited, yet somehow knew every room. And then, almost as quickly as it appeared, the dream begins to dissolve. A few minutes later, all that's left is a vague emotional residue, a feeling, a question, a strange curiosity about why your mind created something so vivid only to take it away moments later. For years, I assumed dreams were little more than random mental noise, just scattered fragments of memory firing off while the brain rested. But the deeper I looked into the psychology of dreaming, the more fascinating the picture became. Because psychologists have been trying to understand dreams for more than a century, and what they've discovered is far stranger than most people realize. Here's what makes this particularly interesting. Your brain is one of the few systems in existence that never truly shuts down. Even while you're asleep, even while you're completely unaware of the world around you, your mind remains remarkably active. In fact, during certain stages of sleep, parts of your brain become almost as engaged as they are during waking life, which raises a question that researchers have been asking for decades. If your body is resting and your conscious awareness is offline, what exactly is your brain doing with all that activity? Why would evolution dedicate so much energy to something as strange and seemingly pointless as dreaming? And perhaps more importantly, why do dreams feel so emotionally real despite being entirely created inside your own mind? Psychologists have noticed something fascinating about dreams. They often seem random on the surface, but beneath that randomness, patterns begin to emerge. Not obvious patterns, not the kind that instantly reveal themselves, but subtle emotional patterns that connect to experiences you've had, worries you've carried, and feelings you've never fully processed. Think about everything your mind encounters in a single day: conversations, decisions, disappointments, embarrassing moments, small victories, unspoken frustrations, small worries about the future. Most of these experiences never receive your full attention. Life moves too quickly. New information constantly replaces old information. Yet your brain doesn't simply discard everything. Much of it remains stored somewhere beneath awareness. According to many psychologists, sleep may be the period when your mind finally begins sorting through some of that unfinished material. Now, here's where things become psychologically interesting. Most people assume dreams are about events. We focus on the story. We try to figure out what the strange building meant, or why a certain person appeared, or what it means when we're falling, flying, or getting chased. But many researchers believe dreams are less concerned with events and far more concerned with emotions. The images themselves may be strange, but the feelings underneath them are often very familiar. You might dream about missing a train, failing a test you haven't taken in years, or getting lost somewhere unfamiliar. None of those situations may actually exist in your life, yet the emotional experience inside the dream often reflects something real: anxiety, uncertainty, pressure, fear of failure. Your mind appears to borrow symbols and scenarios from memory as a way of expressing emotional states that are currently active beneath the surface. And honestly, this changes how you look at dreams entirely, because suddenly you're not asking, "What does this dream mean?" Instead, you're asking a much more interesting question: what emotion was my mind trying to process? That's a completely different lens, and once you start looking through it, many dreams begin making a surprising amount of sense. Not logical sense, emotional sense. The dream itself may still seem bizarre, but the feeling underneath it often connects directly to something you're experiencing in your waking life. Here's the part most people overlook. Sometimes dreams bring back people you haven't thought about in years: an old friend from school, a former coworker, a relative who rarely crosses your mind anymore. You wake up wondering why that specific person appeared. Did it mean something? Were they somehow important? But psychologists have found that dreams frequently use familiar people as emotional placeholders. The dream may not actually be about that person at all. Instead, your mind may be using them as a shortcut to access a particular feeling, memory, or chapter of your life. What matters isn't always who appeared in the dream. What matters is what emotional association they carry inside your memory. And this is where the science becomes surprisingly comforting. Research suggests that dreaming may play a role in emotional regulation. In simple terms, your brain may be using sleep as an opportunity to process emotional experiences that weren't fully resolved during the day. Imagine carrying dozens of unopened messages around with you everywhere you go. Eventually, the backlog becomes overwhelming. Dreams may function as part of the system your brain uses to sort through that growing pile. Not perfectly, not completely, but enough to keep emotional experiences moving instead of remaining permanently stuck. This could explain why periods of stress often produce more vivid dreams, why emotionally significant life events frequently appear in our dreams, and why certain dreams seem to linger in our minds long after we've awakened. If you're enjoying exploring psychology like this, subscribing helps this channel reach more people who may be searching for the same understanding about their own minds. Now let's talk about one of the strangest aspects of dreaming. Have you ever noticed that some dreams feel more real than reality itself? You wake up carrying genuine emotions from an experience that never actually happened. Maybe you felt grief, relief, joy, fear, longing. Logically, you know the event wasn't real, yet emotionally, something inside you still responds as though it was. That's because your emotional systems don't always draw a clear line between imagined experiences and physical experiences. During a dream, the emotions themselves are often completely real, even if the scenario creating them isn't. That's why a dream can affect your mood for hours after waking. Your brain wasn't reacting to reality, it was reacting to an emotional experience that felt real while it was happening. This doesn't mean dreams predict the future. It doesn't mean every dream contains a hidden message waiting to be decoded, but it does suggest something important. Dreams may offer occasional glimpses into the emotional landscape you're currently navigating. They reveal concerns you haven't fully acknowledged, emotions you've been carrying quietly, and experiences your mind is still attempting to understand. Sometimes those insights are obvious, sometimes they're incredibly subtle, but either way, they remind us that much of our psychological life happens beneath conscious awareness. What fascinates researchers most is that dreams seem to sit at the intersection of memory, emotion, creativity, and self-understanding. The dreaming mind doesn't follow the same rules as the waking mind. It connects ideas more freely. It combines experiences that appear unrelated. It creates narratives that would never survive ordinary logic. Yet somehow, hidden within all that chaos, meaningful emotional patterns often emerge. The dream may not be telling a coherent story, but your brain isn't necessarily trying to tell a story. It may simply be trying to connect pieces together. And maybe that's why dreams continue to fascinate us, not because they provide easy answers, but because they reveal that your mind is always working even when you're not aware of it. Every night while you're asleep, something remarkable continues happening beneath the surface. Memories are being organized. Emotions are being processed, experiences are being integrated into the larger story of who you are. And once you begin to see dreams through that lens, they stop looking like meaningless noise. They start looking like evidence of a mind that never stops trying to understand itself. If this perspective resonated with you, consider subscribing for more psychology explorations like this. And if you'd like to support these deep dives into human behavior and the hidden patterns shaping our lives, becoming a channel member is always appreciated. Because at the end of the day, the psychology of dreaming isn't really about decoding strange symbols or uncovering secret messages. It's about recognizing that even in sleep, your mind continues doing what it has always done, trying to make sense of your experiences, trying to understand your emotions, trying to connect the scattered pieces of your life into something meaningful. And maybe that's why the strangest thing about dreams isn't how unusual they are, it's how much they reveal about being human.